In today's episode of the Pathway Presents podcast, I have a very interesting guest here with me today. I'm with Juliana Casale, and she's sailing over from the team at Wonderment. And Wonderment is in a very interesting and it's a very hot space at the very moment. They're into the post-purchase moments of a user's buyer's journey, and they're an experienced platform in that space. Today we want to really dive at first in what that actually means, sort of that piece of the buyer's journey, what role it plays, but also Juliana is thinking about growth for the company. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Of course. So maybe before we get even deeper into what you guys are all about, maybe give us just a high level overview. Wonderment, why is it there? What does it do? Who's using it?
Yeah, great question. So Wonderment, as you mentioned, is a post-purchase experience platform. What does that mean? So basically, we work with Shopify brands who have customers coming to their website, getting really excited about a product that they're adding to their cart. They get into the order confirmation email, and then sometimes there's radio silence where they don't get an update on their package. Sometimes there are delays in the shipment process. Sometimes something's delivered and they don't know it, so it's sitting on their doorstep for a while. There's a lot of things that can go wrong with the post-purchase experience. And, there's not often a lot that brands can do to mitigate the damage. Due to the fact that they don't really have a lot of data from their carriers around where shipments are stalled or where there's something being held up. We found that a lot of brands get a lot of customer support tickets that are saying, where's my order? I don't know where my order is. Like, where's my package? When can I expect it to be delivered? And often the CS teams at these brands just don't know the answer. They don't have any more data than the customer does through their order tracking. And so, there was a big black box there that Wonderment is trying to solve for. And so basically what the offering is of the product is we tap into carrier data from over 80 carriers across the globe. And so we get a lot of data that we then give to a report where our customers can check on the status of all their deliveries and where things are getting held up in transit. They can proactively notify their customers then that something has been delayed, but they're monitoring it. They're going to make sure that the customer gets it. We also provide transactional email. So if a brand wants to let the customer know, your order is not only confirmed, but it's on its way, it's been delayed, it's, over communicating so the person doesn't have any anxiety around where their order is. We also offer that. And what's really exciting is we now have this new feature where we give branded order pages for tracking. And so if a customer wants to know where their order is, it's got up to the minute updates on that. And then they also have space, the brand has space to add their own custom content. So as someone's looking at the status of their package, there's also related products they can buy, there's subscription plans they can sign up for, they can sign up for email or SMS updates. So it's not only a good way to keep the relationship going between the brand and the customer, it's also a way for the brand to make more revenue. So it's a win-win on both sides, which is really cool. And we're seeing a lot of traction with our customers adopting this product, seeing really great value and return on investment there. And I think the coolest part for me is getting to see how all these customers are using their customized pages in different ways to highlight content that they think is valuable.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So the use case is clear. What would you say, like what types of companies benefit the most? Does the e-commerce shop have to have a certain size, a certain volume, certain amount of website visitors, certain amount of transactions? Like where do you see sort of, as a sweet spot for where one it makes sense?
Yeah, so there's definitely verticals that are sweet spots. I've seen a lot of pet supply companies actually use us because their orders are perishable. And so again, you don't want dog food sitting on your doorstep for more than a few hours. You want to let the customer know to pick it up as soon as possible. We've seen a lot of traction with high-end companies where the post-purchase experience is really important because people are dropping hundreds of dollars on one order. And so they really need to offer white glove service after someone's pressed the order button. We've also seen a lot of adoption from beauty and wellness brands, especially the wellness space where, again, getting your order pretty quickly is very important. We work with one UTI health company. So for example, when you have a UTI, you want to get your package as soon as possible to start feeling better. And then there are companies that have more than one package with their order. So tracking becomes very complicated. So we see a lot of use case there. And then, yeah, we also see a lot of apparel, fashion, where people want to build long-term relationships where it's not just one first time purchase and that's it, but they want them coming back and having a good experience. So that's really the verticals that we see a lot of need for the product. And then on the user side, I think our top types of customer personas are either the founder of an e-commerce brand, where it's a pretty small brand, and they're doing a lot of the lifting across all of the different departments. So they're kind of like a one-person army, and they want to make sure that the post-purchase experience is covered. We see a lot of CX leaders that want to use the product, again, to proactively give notifications to customers to cut down on support tickets. And then we also see growth marketers. Like I mentioned, our new feature has a revenue component. So if they want to grow, the money that they're making, this is a really easy way to do that.
Wow, that makes a lot of sense. Super interesting, and very interesting to see how it sort of varies a little bit by the types of products that e-commerce that you're selling. So that's super interesting. Now, how do these founders, these marketers, learn about Wonderment? What's the sort of the typical client acquisition channels you guys leverage?
Yeah, so actually this is very unique for all the other different companies I've worked at in the past 10 years, in that everything is very organic, very inbound. We're not paying any money on advertising. We are an 11-person company, and we just have a pre-series A round of investment. And so we have to be very scrappy in the way that we grow our brand. And so a lot of people are finding us through content marketing. I've done a lot of work in the past 3 months that I've joined Wonderment to build up our blog and our resources, build case studies, build, pieces of information that people find valuable. So, like examples, templates, that sort of stuff does really well for getting people to find out about us through Google search. And then the other piece that's really been great for us is social media, and just organic social media. So Twitter, I would say, is our #1 channel for our customers talking about us and getting other people interested. I think LinkedIn is the other one that does pretty well for us, where people are having conversations that involve post-purchase. And then another thing I've noticed too is communities. And that's sort of been I know there's dark social where you can't always prove that someone had a conversation about you before they convert. But I do know that people do talk about us in gated communities, let's say on Slack or Facebook. So I know that there are people talking about us, even if we can't directly monitor or attribute that.
Very cool. I mean, in the e-commerce space, we had guests on the show, and obviously the Shopify user base plays a huge role. Sometimes there's a strategy that goes around, building it around the marketplace. How do you guys think about, like, what role does Shopify play? Is there a certain specific way you would, address users there? Is there some learnings maybe that you've done in the first couple of months that you've been in the company?
Yeah, that's actually a really well-timed question, because we were just featured on the Shopify App Store as a featured app. And so we had a whole push to make sure that our Shopify app listing copy was up to date, that our video had all our new features on it, that our reviews were, as glowing as we could get our customers to say about us. So yeah, I know it's been a really good traffic generator. I won't say we had like a ton of more installs than normal when we were featured, but it is really great for brand awareness. So that was a wonderful bit of news to hear, that we would be spotlighted as a staff pick. And so, given how early stage we are, like, that's just a really great way to build credibility and, show that people are finding value. And, we do have a small number of reviews, but they're all 5-star. So we're just going to keep building that up. And like, we've had very great customer advocates for us. So we're just going to keep seeing that, hopefully.
Okay, so since we talked a bit about how people are getting to know Wonderment, like, what would you say? What role does the website play in the journey of them getting to know you guys?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we've been doing a lot of investment on our content. So one thing that I think is really helpful, I've seen a lot of traffic on our, how do I communicate with my customers when an order is delayed? Those are our top topics. All our blog posts with examples do really well. And so I think people look to us for resources where we're the experts in that space, and, they just want guidance. And so we try to provide things where they can copy paste the text, or, there's design examples they can look at in our swipe files. So I think one thing that people find out about us is just through related search topics. I think another thing that's really good is once you're on our homepage, like there's a tries for free right there. So there's really not a lot of barrier to entry. If you're curious about what our reporting looks like, it's really easy to connect to your Shopify store and just start trying us right off the bat. I think one thing to note is, we had our website put together a while ago, and we made our best guesses about, what the value propositions are or who we think would be interested in the product. But I am going to be launching a jobs to be done analysis in the next month, where we ask our top paying happy customers, how they found out about us, why they converted, what other options they were considering, just to get a sense. So we're not assuming of, what people care about the most. And that way we can maybe shuffle the content around, maybe add some components. The other thing I want to think about is FAQs. Our sales lead gets a lot of questions when he's on demos. And so taking that information and making sure that any objections are handled upfront if we can on the website. So I think, we've done the best we can making some assumptions, but, you want to market using data. And so I'm starting to gather the data that we can take an action off of.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you've been in very interesting marketing roles prior over the years. So not just only limited to your experience now at Wonderment. Like, what have you learned over the years when it comes to actually driving conversions from the website, right? So a lot of folks bring a lot of traffic to the pages, they build great content to attract users. And then sometimes they have challenges actually generating, demos or signups. What have you learned? Like any approaches, methods, tools that you find are helpful in that regard?
Yeah. So what's funny is I actually worked at Crazy Egg, which is a conversion rate optimization company. And I didn't know anything about CRO before I joined, but sort of the year there was a crash course on, A/B testing and heat maps and things like that. And so it's kind of a fun tool to have in my marketing arsenal. And actually, I was just talking to our co-founder about installing it on our website to start seeing how people are interacting, because it's always so different between companies. I think one thing marketers run into is best practices fallacy, where, someone says, oh, I ran this test and I got this result. But I mean, your offering and your customers is always so different between companies that you can't just apply a one size fits all approach. And so I think it's really important for everyone to have their own insights on how people are interacting with website content. And so one thing I am really excited to try is installing and seeing, how far down pages do people get before they bounce, what elements are they interacting with, what are they clicking on, where are they exiting, where are they going next, and then the recordings part will be really interesting too, just to see if people are getting stuck somewhere, if it seems like there's stuff we're not giving them, and so they're getting annoyed with us and leaving. So having those insights will be great. So I think, I'm not sure if Crazy Egg's still free, but when I joined, you could get a free trial, and so it'll be pretty easy for us to install it and find out that information for ourselves. And then I think the other really cool thing now in marketing is, acquisition has been so focused on, so invested on, there's just been so much talk about, Facebook ads and Google search ads and things like that. And now that, data and privacy is being cracked down on, there's a lot more focus on customer retention. And so I really love that. I think it's really important to not just focus on getting someone in your funnel, but actually making sure they stay there, or else you're just stuffing, leads into a leaky bucket, basically. So I think this transition into focus on getting the most out of who's already interacting with your brand is really interesting. And so, yeah, just looking at the whole process, just from acquisition to, okay, now they're in your email list. What are you sending them? How are you supporting them through resources, information? How are you making sure their customer support experience is a good one? Making sure the delivery, if you've got a physical product, is a good experience as well. I think reviews are really important too. And if you don't ask people at the right time for what their feedback is, you're not going to like the answer. So just making sure everyone's feeling good about your brand and supported, because there's a lot of competition out there these days.
Okay, so you mentioned actually privacy there for a second. So I'm super curious, because the cookieless future has been coming up quite a lot actually recently on the show, and people are starting to prepare. Some marketers are less in tune, some are more in tune. What's your sentiment? What's your take on that? What should marketers do right now? And maybe sort of what do you see people needing to do within the next couple of months?
Yeah, great question. I was actually listening to a podcast this morning where they were talking about how marketers have typically cobbled together a lot of data from different sources and relied on other channels for the data or the targeting, and you can't really do that as much anymore. So, there's going to be a lot more focus on zero-party data where it's the information you already own about the customer based on what they've bought from you in the past, or what emails they're clicking on, or what they're opening, or if you have a quiz or any sort of information gathering survey tool, just making sure that you've got information directly from the customer and taking action off of that. And that'll lead to a lot better segmentation and a lot more engagement. So I think it's just a best practice that no one's really had to focus on because they didn't have to, but now it's sort of forcing the hand of marketers to get a little more savvy and a little more personalized with their approach.
Very cool. As we approaching the end of the interview, I would have some rapid fire questions for you. Are you ready for those?
I think so. Let's go.
Very good. What is the last book you read, or the one book you would recommend marketers should read?
I just read a book. It was about an Indigenous man living in Canada. It's called Unreconciled. I didn't know about the relationship Canada has with Indigenous people before reading this book. It was part of a book club recommendation, but I think it's really important to learn about, the history of different countries, especially given today is Canada Day. And so it was sort of, it was a slow read. I think some of it was a little bit painful, just learning about all of these things that people don't really talk about, but I think it's really important. And, as a marketer, I listen to a lot of marketing podcasts and e-commerce podcasts, but I try to keep my reading to non-marketing angles, just so I'm learning about different things outside of my bubble and, being exposed to different writing styles as well. Since I do a bit of copywriting, I think it's important to have voices that aren't mine represented.
What's one single thing that your company is focused on the most at the moment?
I think it's getting the most value to customers that have already installed Wonderment. Like, we want to make sure that people know about features that they're activating on different tools that we have. I think there's a lot of education that we can provide that's really valuable. We actually just hired 2 new people that are starting next week. One is going to be on product marketing and the other one's on customer success. So that just really shows where our investments are and just making sure people are super successful. Again, I think it's really easy to put your focus on getting new customers in the door. And of course, we are trying to build our customer base, but we also really want to make sure that people who are already partnering with us are seeing the value.
Very cool. And for the very last question, since we actually running out of time, getting to the end for the interview, I would like to ask you one thing. If we would be doing a little bit of time travel, right? We would go back to the days when you basically, finishing up your formal education, you've been doing some interesting courses along the way. What would you say for your start in your journey in marketing? What would be the one advice that you would give you for yourself?
Oh, wow. I think given how many different positions in marketing I've had over the years, I would say marketing is a long game. No company is forever, especially in tech. So just, learn what you're going to learn where you are and, get the most you can out of working with really smart, interesting people. But at the end of the day, you're your best asset. And so you just carry over all the knowledge that you have across all your jobs. And, I think especially given all the layoffs in tech lately, that's really important advice is, don't take it personally if there's a layoff, and just know that you're resilient and you can, apply what you know to all sorts of different industries and all sorts of different roles. So don't feel like your job defines you, but, just be confident in your abilities.
I think that's very, very wise words, actually, to be honest. Very cool, Juliana. I really appreciate you were part of Platform Presents.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thank you for having me.